My name is Queen Jefferson, and this is the Voices program. Subano is an African proverb that I say everywhere I go. It simply means, I see you, I hear you, and I honor you. I stand as tall as I do, for I stand on the backs of my ancestors. Had it not been for them, and many of them who lost their lives on my behalf, I would not have this privilege to be able to pass on the baton of knowledge. My brothers and sisters, where there's knowledge, there's power. Power to make a difference in our communities. I say to you again, Subano, I see you, I hear you, and I honor you. I am so excited and so elated about the Voices program and our new format. And we have some very special guests on today, but one of our other co-hosts is none other than Sister Robin Jackson. And I am so excited that she is here today.
Hi. My name is Robin Jackson, as Queen Jefferson has said. I am the CEO of Ayolowa Creations, where our motto is, we look at the mess and we turn it into something so great and so inspirational that the businesses are moved and the people are moved by what we do. At this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Carter Gaines, and she will tell you about herself.
Good morning. I'm the CEO of Good Morning Ministries, and I always say good morning. Joy cometh in the morning. My ministry is to work with young women and gay youth and to let them know there is joy. So many of them have been downtrodden and they are sad. They don't understand the joy of life. And I want to ensure that they get a little piece of that in their life. My other co-host is Reverend
Dion.
Dion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost didn't come out there.
That's all right. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
That's all right. We are here.
She's just waking up.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Just waking
that's
up.
what happens when you just wake up. It's such an honor and a privilege to be here. I'm Dion Davis, the visionary of Get a Life. Get a Life is an organization where we try to bring forth a sense of hope to those individuals that live this journey out of obligation and never tap into passion and never tap into purpose and enjoying the moments, but being able to understand who you are, whose you are. That's when you will tap into and understand what life is all about. And so that's why we're here, to inspire, to give a sense of encouragement, to give a sense of hope that yes, you can live and live life to the fullest. I'm honored and I'm privileged to be able to introduce our guest on tonight.
Yes.
Dr. C.R. Gibbs.
Yes, sir. Yes,
a
sir.
historian, an author, a co-author, a gentleman, a man that brings forth life to history.
Yes.
Oftentimes we look at history and we believe that it's dead. But this man has been touched, has been anointed to be able to bring life to history and allow us to know where we come from, where we are, and where we're to go. It's an honor and a privilege to introduce our guest on tonight, Mr. C.R. Gibbs.
I'm very pleased to be here with you all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank
It's
you.
an honor to have you. Just tell us a little bit, Dr. Gibbs, just about who you are, what you do. You'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I'm, first of all, a native of Washington, D.C. I'm the author of 6 books and, matter of fact, doing a lecture series that I founded in 1989. And we've been doing it. It's one of the longest continuous African history and culture lecture series on the East Coast.
Wow.
Because where some have stopped and started, we have been doing this continuously for the community since 1989. And it's part of my mission, if you will, to make sure that there's always a place you can go if you need to know. And that's really it. It's trying to sort of put a bandage over the wound of our ignorance and trying to make life in this city just a little bit better by learning about ourselves, understanding our place in society, and indeed in the larger universe.
You know, Dr. Gibbs, I feel honored that you're here And I know one of the people who made it possible is your wife.
Yes, indeed. I usually call
What is her name?
Her name is Betty, the beautiful, lovely, and talented, and I always say she's the brains of the outfit.
All right. I like that. I like that.
There's
a good woman.
That's
Yes,
right.
yes.
And I fully, freely, and fairly acknowledge her.
She's in our audience today. But
Oh, that's
we're
good.
excited that you're here. You know, it's exciting because today we're going to talk about warfare to wellness, a journey towards true freedom. And no one can talk about that better than you, a historian.
Well.
Can you talk about a little bit where it came from and how did we get to where we are today?
The concept of welfare, as we understand it, goes back to the 1930s, to the time of the Great Depression, and President Roosevelt's attempts to try and bring what we might say a system of humane but minimal provisions for human life and social support. And so when we talk about it, and of course it's come through many different names. I mean, we had WIC. Women,
okay.
infants, and children.
Okay.
We have temporary assistance to needy families.
Okay.
So all of these kinds of things are, well, of course, food stamps and that sort of thing. All of these sort of have come under the rubric of what we know as welfare. And today, what we have to do, anytime we discuss the history of a system like that, is to take a look at the fact that in traditional African society, we did not need to have government-sponsored welfare.
Exactly.
See, that's where we're going to talk about.
We didn't have jails or prisons. We didn't have those things because the system revolved around a simple concept that rather than I'm the universe and the world's no bigger than the width of my own shoulders, it was I am because we are. That we operated in a reciprocal understanding of our relationship to the group and the group's relationship to the individual. So the idea of support came out of, if you're suffering, you help your brother. We call it communalism, and we sort of personify and echo that in the principles of Kwanzaa. But its roots go back to the very beginning of African society and African tradition. So when we come to this country and we understand that if in fact welfare is constructed to provide assistance to the family, well, we didn't need to have the government do that when we did it ourselves, and we paid a high price, I think, for having government assistance.
Way too
It's a thorny situation, and there's scholars on both sides of this debate. But for example, you have the conservatives, and if I can say personified by Walter Williams of George Mason, who says that welfare did what slavery couldn't do to the black family. It destroyed it.
Destroyed it.
Yes, that's what I believe.
And yet on the other hand, we have, and I'm recalling a 1984 study that said that it wasn't the worst thing to strike us, but what happens is that when you see the nexus of what appear to be deteriorating families, out of wedlock births, part of this is also because many women have decided at a very early age that there is not a large enough supply of marriageable men. So there are a number of different ways to approach this situation, and you know we can talk a little bit more about that. But just to sort of lay it out in brief, we're now at a situation where we look back on welfare and we know that it's gone through changes, it's gone through phases or shifts. So we have the participation of the Roosevelt administration, the very beginning of welfare. Then we have the Great Society tinkering with it, LBJ, and we see an expansion, if you will, and to some extent a redefinition. Then in 1996, Bill Clinton says he wants to end welfare as you know it, and to some extent he did. And it is from that period we begin to get more emphasis on means testing. Some would say a greater emphasis on punishment for poor choices in life. Whatever the case may be, when we look at it as it is on the 21st century, the arrival of the 21st century, it seems to be a system in need of recasting and review.
Some overhaul.
I think it's fair to say anything that, with all due respect, is roughly 70 plus years old, it may be time for a facelift. It may be. It may be. Clearly, it doesn't appear to be meeting the best needs of its people. And there's some aspects of it, for example, taking away welfare from women who may have had problems with the judicial system. You know, it's become more punitive. It seems to be a political football that is constantly kicked back and forth, administration by administration. In other words, one administration kicks it that way, another administration kicks it that way. And it seems clear that any system that is open to the political winds, as quick shifting as they are, is probably not the best thing that we need to hang our future on as a people.
Well, let me ask you this. So I have always felt that because we have, this is exactly the way I feel, we don't have those community lines like it did when I grew up. You know, mother said, get home before the street lights come up. And, you know, it was like a telephone. You know, Miss Sally would call and say she ran past my house. She ran past, you know, the relay. So my mother knew I was on the way, getting there. I just had to get there. There are no communities like that anymore. I think that for us as a people, impacted on now you got this welfare system really has been the down throttle for African Americans.
We have got to reinvent a culturally relevant system that brings us back to where we were. And we also have to, and the only way we can do this is by example, and I'm surrounded by examples of people who understand that the government system certainly shouldn't be the only system, and that we are in desperate need of something that speaks to us as sons and daughters of Africa. And I think that we can do that, but it takes hard work. But most of all, example. Most of all, example. And an example that understands that this is a problem that is so root to us as a people, we need to deal with it where we are. And by that I mean each of us, where to the extent that we have a social network where people are suffering, where people are feeling as though they've been left behind, or as former Mayor Berry used to say, the last, the lost, and the least, that we remind them that it's no sin to look inside. And perhaps that's part of the benefit of education, is that we do have other options. When I go to the schools, and I was recently at a charter school where you have some troubled youth, I wanted to show them most clearly that they didn't simply have the one option that society gives them, which is, if I may say, a Eurocentric option, that if they learn more about themselves as black folk, they'd come to understand that as they look at themselves in the mirror, as they see themselves in the future, maybe if they knew more about the past, they would understand, they would understand that we don't have to take this particular regimen just because this is the only one. This may be the only one you know about on Tuesday, but hopefully after I left your class on Wednesday, on Thursday, you're looking at some of the options. If I could just give an example, there's a wonderful, and this may sound like a contradiction in terms to some of the listeners, an Ethiopian philosopher named Zara Yaqub. This is a man who wrote, he was a contemporary of the French philosopher Descartes, but he was hitting it in the motherland. He was writing works on rational thought and tradition and the need to figure out that if the past does not work for you, you need to invent the future.
Wow.
Okay.
That's good. That's good.
And so Zara Yaqub was a man who looked at the things going on in Ethiopian society, and with a background in ancient Egyptian thought, Greek, Arabic, and Aramaic thought, decided to recast Ethiopia and where it needed to go in a manner that was culturally fitting for the nation as a whole. And so all I'm suggesting is that instead of if you love Plato and Aristotle, that's great. But if you don't know Zara Yaqub, if you don't know the work and deep thought of people that look like the folks around this table, then maybe your education is not complete. That's all I'm suggesting.
But when you talk about education, we don't get, I may be telling my age, but all I got about education for me is a little picture about that size, how we fit on the boat coming over here. That was the end of it. I didn't get any black history. I didn't understand where I came from and what I should be trying to do. I mean, we didn't get that. I got it in my neighborhood because we had communities. Now we don't have communities, so you don't see that. You know, I yell at your kid, you mad at me. Not because the kid was doing something wrong, but because I'm yelling at him. But I'm just trying to make sure that I yell at him so you can get to go home rather than the police yelling at you and you not get to go home. So that community has been just not pulverized, it's been removed from an understanding of people that, you know, I don't even know what community means.
Well, I think the government in its own greatness has taken away the power from the families and the communities. It's taken it away from them to the point that it has made them believe that they have to depend on something outside themselves. Earlier, when you were talking about the education, I think in my age, and I'm telling my age, when I was growing up, getting my education, it was said, you get your education, you get your degree so you can work for someone else. Not so that I can go and work for myself.
Yourself.
You know, and you just talked about the
Get a
structure
good government job.
of getting the understanding of that I need to work for myself and create, kind of like what we've done around this table, create wealth in my own community to make a difference.
We've created a sense of community at this table.
Okay.
And if I'm feeling what I think I am, it's the fact that we create, and I think it was Duke Ellington that talked about this. Anytime you feel down and out, go seek inspiration from your people.
That's true.
And I know
and that is
It makes
truly.
you feel all bad or good. They'll tell you what's wrong with you.
But that let you feel.
Yeah, that let you
I may be
feel.
giving my age away, but I do remember a wonderful comedian named Moms Mabley.
Oh,
Yes.
She said, Negroes and onions will make you cry. And she didn't say that, she wasn't saying Negroes, but you know, you get the idea. The point though is, and a preacher at Howard University I know has suggested that when you feel that way, that you need to drink from the cup of inspiration. A trip to the Martin Luther King Memorial.
Yes,
Do it.
yes.
And I know it did it for me. It certainly filled my cup up. If I needed a spiritual filling station,
Yes.
I just need to pull up by there and get a little bit
That's
and
beautiful.
keep on my journey. What I mean, the idea of community began with a concept not here, but here. Okay,
That's right.
in that we needed to come together in order to solve mutual problems.
Right.
And Lord knows we got mutual problems today.
We got some
Okay,
problems.
so I'm suggesting that we can radically recreate the sense of African community that we lost. There used to be a brother that sold books in D.C. that said, they stole it, but you must return it. And to some extent, we are not as bereft of the material to rebuild the community as we might think. When you do the work you do, you are building a community. As long as the young people you counsel know that they don't have to go to the welfare office or the crisis center, they can also come talk to you. That's a sense. That's the beginning of a sense of community. That is the knitting together of diverse strands of spirituality, commitment, social work based in the community. So we do have the opportunity, even if we start with no more than what we have, the fibers that we have at this table, we can begin to restore and rebuild a sense of community that at the same time not only instructs but heals, not only uplifts, but even to a certain degree entertains. Because it can't always be serious.
No, it
But
can't.
what it must do is leave you in a different place than where it found you. A different and better place than where it found you. So I'm suggesting that at least those of us that may have a year or two more than some of our younger folk, Primarily, I'm speaking about myself.
Oh, okay. I'm glad y'all talking about that because, you know, you looked a little bit this way.
And you know, that's what I mean. I mean, when I was at Seed Public Charter School the other day, I love to make references in my presentations about, well, what they call old stuff. And I made a mistake. I went back too far. I made an assumption that the children would know what I meant when I used the term People's Drugstore.
Oh,
And,
no,
I put it in the context of, can you tell me the drugstore chain that was replaced by CVS? And they looked at me, and that was about the third time. They let me get away with 2 more old references, like streetcars and all of that. It's like a group of children I was with at the Douglas home, and they were convinced that Frederick Douglass must have had a pager because all old people had pagers.
A hearing aid.
Right. No, he didn't have a pager. He didn't even have a telephone for a long time. He didn't have, electricity. The kids,
lamps.
they were horrified. Couldn't believe it. They started, looking sideways at me.
How old is he?
Yeah. So, but the idea is, if we catch them at the right age, we can use these children as building blocks of that community.
What is the right age?
Yeah, I mean, when do you?
Coming straight out of the womb. In other words, remember, in traditional African society, we taught the children not first out of book, but by example.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Then, and when they came a certain age, for boys, for example, when you were in an age set group, you were taken out into the bush. The girls were in Sierra Leone, for example, many other parts of West Africa. You have a secret society that teaches girls. You have a secret society that teaches men.
How to be.
Okay. How to be. How to be, and what is expected of them. Dr. John Henry Clark, peace be upon him, talked about honor and obligation being the twin foundations of African society. This is what we need to bring back to our young people. Yes, I am talking about, this is no overnight fix.
No.
This is not simply add water and stir. It is not that. But what it is a cogent, consistent, well thought out practice that can, again, take us a step or 2 up better than we were if we stayed away from the first step.
Well, Dr. Gibbs, Reverend Dion is at the table with us, and he works with youth. They not even listening to preachers. They not listening, and he has to even come a whole unique way just to be able to reach them. I mean,
and I think just listening to Dr. Gibbs, I can just sit at his feet, and just and receive from him. I would say that we've lost our mind. And we've lost our mind based upon what we've been hearing.
Yes. Yeah.
Because our mind is a central location that dictates life. And so what we've been hearing, for an example, I do work with youth, and I asked one of the youth, why do you act the way you act? And he said, because I'm MR. I said, what's MR? He said, I don't know. That's what they call me. That's what they label me. And I guess someone MR was supposed to do this. I said, but what does that mean? I don't know. I just do this because I'm MR. Mental retardation, however, him not even understanding labels, just understanding that this is what I hear. I'm bad. I'm no good. I supposed to jump off the wall. No.
Wow.
And so we're losing our mind based upon what we're hearing.
Right.
And because our eardrum is directly connected with our mind, and our mind dictates what we do, we're living in this quote-unquote welfare, because welfare is just not, like we said, food stamps. It's a mentality.
That's it.
It's a mindset.
That's it.
And so we're constantly hearing, I'm nothing, I'm nobody, I can't do nothing. I'm just
going
to be this person. I'm a hustler, I'm a pimp, so I constantly hear this, and my brain goes to sleep. And so I'm not able to come out of welfare and even think about wellness. I'm not able to come out of selling drugs. You said an example. The best example that they may have is your blood at the corner. Selling crack.
That's it.
Got a Mercedes-Benz.
He got a Mercedes.
Mercedes-Benz.
Where everybody
Williams
Mercedes ain't bad. You know.
living in public housing.
Yeah.
That's the greatest
Yeah.
example that I have.
Got all the sneakers. Every
Got
new
all of
pair
that.
come out, he got.
So it's a mentality that we are dead, brain dead.
Yeah.
We're brain dead to the point that we're not able to move out of it. And I tell them, and I affirm them, you're not no hustler, you're not no pimp. Your label may be MR, but guess what? You've been created by the king. That makes you royal. Hold your head up. They can label you what they want to label you, but that's not who you are.
And some of the great men in history would have, if they had those, because they'd have picked up that letter MR, ADD, all of that. Picked up all kind of letters.
Yeah.
You know, but they still did something because, as you say, the mindset was different. I keep going back to Robin, when you say, you know, we look at the mess, the little, and we make something great. We pull something great out of that.
And I think about, and I was going to pose a question to you, is our school systems. When you were talking about you going to see, and I'm sure their environment is a different environment than your regular school systems, what they're being taught. What is being said to them, how it's being said to them.
That's it.
That has an impact on how they respond as well. So I guess when we look at it, it's not just what they're hearing in the community, or even sometimes coming from the family.
Well, that's true.
Because it can.
Dumb.
Yeah.
You can be like your sorry father.
You know, it can come from different avenues. So I guess the question I would pose to you is that, how can we rewind what the school is unwinding?
One principle will do. Your education does neither stop nor start at the schoolhouse door.
That's good.
Amen.
That's good.
Amen.
That's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
Amen.
And so, yes, I'm asking already overburdened parents and grandparents to make sure, take your child, to the museum. I mean, we've heard this, that about children not knowing, and I know this for a fact. I mean, there are children whose sense of geography is so skewed. I met a guy who was trying to teach, and this I'm talking about DC public school system, that the only way he could get young people interested in geography was to say, where did the Houston Rockets play? You know, try to find it there. With the Celtics, can you point out where on the map you think that is? Which means that, as you've already pointed out, we have to be, well, that's a very sexual term I was going to use. Forgive me, wife. But we have to be, we have to be complete sluts about how we get over to our children the importance of it. We have to be willing to juggle. I mean, if it's if it's juggling up on one leg, you know, whatever we got to do, we have to do, because they are getting 1/3 of their day in that schoolhouse, and everything that they hear in the schoolhouse. And remember, there are lessons that are spoken, and there are mental lessons that are intuitive. A word is never spoken in that. When we see that black people have often left the teaching profession, that's a lesson as well.
Yeah.
That is a lesson as well.
That is scary.
So these are some of the things that we have to be attuned to as we move through this process of rebuilding the community in the process of going from welfare to wellness.
You know, I have a question to ask you, and I don't expect you to answer right now, but when we come back from the break, because I know we're going to have a break shortly, I'd like to hear your thoughts on integration. Now, I've always felt that integration was one of the catalysts that was a down spiral. There are many things that I think that were successful in terms of integration, but my parents were in education, so I looked at it from a different view. And, you know, they told my mom she couldn't, and other teachers, they couldn't discipline those kids like they be, you know, little ruler, they hit you on the hand and all that.
They didn't do that no more.
They couldn't do all that stuff. So when they stopped the ability to discipline, so now we have a generation upon generation of undisciplined people. And integration was one of the major contributors to that. Then I look around and I say, you know, no, you think looking like everybody else, no, I'm different. No, you look just like everybody else.
Okay.
You look just like everybody else in terms of the pants, the t-shirt, the other kinds of things, that you look just like everybody else. So I'd like to hear your thoughts about the integration and this impact on welfare, and how that then we can look at and help us move toward some wellness.
Well, we're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we will address her question. We'll be back in about 10 minutes.
All right.
Thank you for tuning in to this most inspirational hour of your day. This is the Voices program. I'm Queen Jefferson, and I am so excited about the program today. We have a very special guest, and that's none other than Dr. C.R. Gibbs. But we also have one of our other co-hosts who have joined us, and that's none other than Cleopatra.
Yes, hello all, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Cleopatra Islar, and I'm the co-founder and author of C&G Global Connections Travel, and I am very happy to be part of this panel this evening.
You know, Dr. C.R. Gibbs, you have taken groups to Africa. You've done a lot of work, but before we went on break, Dr. Brenda Gaines posed a question to you. Mm-hmm. Can you address that question?
Well, I think for the benefit of those who may have just tuned in, if you would briefly restate the question.
My question was, I wanted you to talk a little bit about the impact of integration on this welfare mindset, how we got there, if we did, and kind of how that all plays into it.
I think, and I do not wish to in any way romanticize Jim Crow. I am not doing that. But we probably should have taken on this coming opportunity with a bit more thought than we did, and tried to see how this was going to affect us. But for so many of us, it was a rush toward the exit. Problem is, what we were exiting was us. Oh. And so we went to other schools. People wanted to go. I can go downtown now. I couldn't go downtown before. I can go downtown now. I'm gone. And we didn't fully appreciate the cost to the community that our leaving it was going there. This would also engender a rush by many middle-class blacks to the suburbs. And that would be another outflow out of the community, wherein it was possible 50 years ago to grow up next to a black doctor or a black dentist, and to have that person, that might be the doctor or dentist you went to, because that was so-and-so. In a neighborhood, we just called it 8th Street in Northeast, there is a building that's going to be preserved that's named after one of the neighborhood African-American physicians. But if you didn't grow up there, you won't necessarily know the importance of that building and that man. But these were some of the earliest community leaders. These were some of the people that were object lessons on the path to success, because you didn't have to wonder if there was anybody successful in your neighborhood that wasn't selling drugs, or back in my day wasn't selling booze. You had to, because you had Dr. So-and-so over there.
And your teacher lived down the street.
And your teacher lived down the street, which of course, made it a little bit more difficult for you to get away with drugs. But that's all right, because there was this sense of community. And we come back to that as an antidote or antidote to looking at welfare as the only option that we have. So, in sum, yes, we were affected both positively and negatively by integration. It would have done better had we assessed its root impact a little more profoundly. We didn't, and we are in part in the condition that we're in now because of that. But again, that does not leave us without tools and instruments to, again, rebuild that sense of community and to once again strike out to heal the hurt. Malcolm X often talked about, who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you is the question that he often asked. And yes, some of that is our responsibility, but a lot more of that came from a society whose images were mirrors without an accurate reflection of the people standing in front of them.
Right.
Does everybody understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So when you're looking at too young to know anything about this, but a funhouse mirror does not give an accurate reflection of you. We have to do away with that fun house. It's distorted. You know, you're wavy and all of this other stuff, and you don't know. And so we have to. And again, where do we start? We start right where we are. We start with the wonderful examples around the table. For our viewers, you start in your family. I know that there is Afro-Latino brother that I think he's from Peru, and one of the first things he did with his granddaughter was he had her stand by while they played chess, and the chess pieces, he said, as the game started, he told his granddaughter, even before he told his opponent, I'm going to take the black pieces. He wanted his granddaughter to see, and then he told her, these are positive, these are beautiful color. He did the reinforcement, the positive reinforcement thing. And he said that later on, his granddaughter said, "Well, Grandpa, I'm gonna take when I play chess, I'm gonna take the black pieces."
Wow, that's good. That's good.
So it doesn't take a lot, but what it does take is consistency. It takes consistently and consistency. And if you don't know where to get, no one's suggesting you have to go out and get a doctorate in blackness. But whether we be in Guyana or in Georgetown, there comes a time at which we need to discuss the possibilities of building something that ain't government. If you understand what I mean.
Dr. Gibbs, you took 26 people to Africa. Why was that important to take them to the motherland?
It was necessary. The main goal of the trip was to show the cultural unity of the continent. That I didn't want you to believe that somehow black Africa stopped at the southern edge of the Sahara Desert, and that the desert itself was some sort of impermeable membrane that kept black people from North Africa. And so we were, and the same was true for cultural diffusion as well. So when I was able in Zimbabwe to see, and I'm sure my wife would say he doesn't get out much, but because it doesn't take much to intrigue me. I saw a statue, a hand-carved wooden statue of a figure out of ancient Egyptian mythology named Tasret. This is essentially a pregnant hippopotamus. That Tasret, however, is the name of the deity in ancient Egypt, 1,000 miles away to the north. What we saw was that we are unified. We come from diversity, but there is, if this sounds wild, unity in diversity. There is a beauty, there is a profundity in us that we have to. It's not whether we want to. We have to communicate this in some way to our children because that's our future. And again, I know we say it all the time, the children are, they put it in songs.
Yes.
But we have to educate our future. Whatever they get in school, great.
Educate them.
But as you explained and how you've done to me
I was
with
just
your
getting ready
kids.
to say that. Education is the key. I just finished a stint with the Junior Achievement Program, which was a wonderful experience. I was at this high school, this primary school. I call it primary school, you call it elementary school here. And what I learned while I was there is that although children come from all different areas, there are lots of Latino kids, more of them than the black kids. But there is a passion for learning if the teachers take the time, which this school, I must say, that school really takes the time to invest in their kids. They're at elementary age. You don't know what's going to happen when they get to 6th and 7th grade and 8th grade. But right now, I think this is where we catch them and really get them excited about learning. We had so many different exercises that we did with the kids. We did one about the impact of the global marketplace on businesses, and they were so intrigued. We talked about cars, how they get manufactured in different little bits and pieces of cars. The rubber comes from Brazil. The China gives this part, and before you know it, they all come together and get the car. But the pieces come from different places, and we made a web so they can, simulate how this happened. And it was wonderful to see that. So when I know we're saying that there are lots of kids who don't have that passion, but I do believe we got to get them at the right time. We have to get them where they can be best impacted. So we have some blame too as
said
parents.
birth, yeah.
We have a lot of blame as well as
Yes, we
parents,
do.
and we
Yes,
have
we
to
do.
expose our kids. I spoke to you a little earlier about that, and I think that giving our kids the ability to think globally from a very early age will help them, will give them advantages and options in the future. Because I am an example of how that worked for my family. Yes, and I would definitely tell any parent, expose them, even to learn Chinese.
Yes.
Yeah.
Learn any language from a very early age. It impacts them for the future positively too.
I remember my son, when he was in school, he's in his 30s now. He was in the 5th grade, I think, 4th or 5th grade, and he had a little girl in his room that could not read. It was a challenge for her to read. And she was Caucasian. And on the weekend, when they would have history, she'd come back Monday and she'd be talking about, you know, this and that and blah, 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 and this and that. And Alice would come home and he'd say, oh, Heather knew this and she knew that. I said, well, oh, but maybe her parents read stories to her. He said, no, Mommy, they didn't read to her. They took her there.
Wow.
They took her there. So she didn't have to read it. She saw what it was.
That's a big difference.
They got in their private jet and flew.
Exposure. You talked about
Now,
that.
not many people
Can
can
afford
do
to do
that.
that.
No,
Yes.
no.
You know what I'm saying? But just the exposure, just the being there. And one other story I want to talk about, Alex, I used to take him to outdoor dramas. We were in North Carolina to find out about the history and, you know, the lost colony and common glory that they don't have anymore and, you know, all those kind of things. And I went to pick him up one day and he was sitting in the bad people's corner and I was like, well, what is this? What is up with this? And his teacher said, we were trying to figure out what drama we wanted to go to see. And everyone we said, he said he'd seen it. And I knew he was lying.
Oh.
Wow.
Well, I'm not now in my journey in life where I was back then.
We don't want to talk about that.
So I won't get into that. But I'm telling you, when I finished talking, I said to myself, she'll think about that till the day she closes her eyes, assuming that he
can't
was
assume.
lying. Because he had been all of them. I said, well, whenever you all go, he won't be going because I can't think of one, not unless they created one yesterday, that he has not seen. But it's just the exposure that they have. And then to celebrate that exposure.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I don't care whether they go downtown to the Air and Space or whether they go to the Hirshhorn or where the Frederick Douglass House, but to say, oh, I'm glad you went, let's talk about it, you know, celebrate that exposure piece.
I think that exposure, that's why I think I asked the question earlier about Africa and taking those people that you took to Africa, the difference that it made in my life when I was able to go to the motherland. And I actually took dirt from, I went to Owerri, I want to make sure, I hope I'm saying that right, Nigeria, Abuja, and Lagos.
Okay.
And we were able to go to those different places to provide health care, but we were able to get dirt. I was so honored just to be in the land of where my ancestors came. And I don't know what kind of experience, and that's why I want to hear from you. You were able to take people over for their first experience of the motherland. What were their reactions when they came back?
It was, for me and for them, a sacred experience.
Wow.
And we saw the difference because when we were on the Zambezi at one point in the trip, there was a party boat with Europeans, and they were drinking and you know, carousing. Half the folk on our boat were praying.
Wow.
In the distance, we could see the foam, the mist rise from what was called Victoria Falls. But of course, the African name was Mosi Oyatunya.
Mosotunya.
The smoke that thunders. There's a different thing. Our people look at stuff differently.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
There's a mountain range in the Republic of South Africa called the Drakensbergs. But in Zulu, the words mean barrier of spears, because the tops of the Drakensbergs are come to sharp points. The pinnacles look like a row of those kind of old Western forts you saw in the movies, you know. And so a barrier of spears, to me, is just so much more exciting than say, well, this is the Drakensberg Mountain. Well, that just doesn't quite do it.
Yeah.
And
Right,
so
right,
the idea of taking people to the motherland was, again, to show that while there, again, are great differences, there, as I said before, there is unity in diversity, and it's not a bad thing, and that you can go from south to north and still appreciate who you are. And I suppose, I know it's necessary. A good friend of mine didn't go on our trip, but went on a similar one a few years later. And she told me her daughter was an artist. And when at the beginning of her trip to the motherland, her daughter drew a faint outline. You could barely see her nose and her eyes. You could barely see her hair. In other words, it was almost like an oval on a white page. By the end of the trip, baby girl was vivid, definite strokes.
Yeah,
I mean, there was
that's good.
And this is part of the benefit that you come. And yes, every time I've gone, you're never the same. When you come
never
back.
the same.
But that is
Never
how
are
it
the
should
same.
be when you go home. That is precisely how it should be when you go home.
You get a new feeling, an inner peace, or something. I don't know what that feeling is. Every time I go. I've been to Ethiopia several times. And every time I go, I have a great appreciation for coming back.
Right.
And a great appreciation for what I do have and the people around me.
Right.
And I want to share that with them and try to get them to understand, you know, this overrunning feeling that I have. And it's hard to do because people that haven't been exposed and people that haven't traveled, that it's difficult and a challenge for them to understand how you feel and what you feel. But once they go and come back, they're like, oh, wow. You know, I saw this and I talked to this person and I went and stood here. I mean, you know, it's overwhelming.
It is.
It truly is overwhelming.
And to see people that you've never seen before but look like your relatives.
Yes.
I
I
was
was
like,
getting ready to
there's
bring
my
that
cousin,
up.
there's my sister. I mean, people really look like you. I mean, more like you than maybe your present family.
Yes.
And when I was over there, this was so exciting. I was over there for a month. So after a while, I kept saying water. I couldn't pronounce the way I talk now because I had been over there for so long. And one of the gentlemen said, oh, you're Igbo. And I'm like, no, I'm not Igbo. You are Igbo. I said, no, I'm not Igbo. He says, Madame, you are Igbo. And I couldn't get out of the country. And I said, y'all gonna know that I'm black. So it turned into Negro, into Igbo. So, but it was so exciting to see that I actually look like people that I've never seen in my life.
Yes.
You know, and then the colors of the people there. I know we have color here, but I was really like other people. I wanted to touch them because I had never seen skin that smooth and that beautiful ever in my life. I mean, I know I'm not by myself, but
No, you're not.
I think it's
no,
so
you're not.
amazing
No, you're not.
because I'm sitting over here and I'm like that child that never went downtown because I've never been to Africa. And so to see and to hear you all have such joy and it takes me to our youth.
yeah.
For their lack of exposure, not being able to experience that joy of coming out of my quote-unquote ghetto, out of my hood, knowing that I can go see the Frederick Douglass home, knowing that I can go to the White House, the monument, Martin Luther King Memorial, and experiencing those things, and then coming back to school and saying, no, I don't just have to read it or look at it in a picture. I was there.
Been there,
I
done
took
that.
a picture.
Look at my phone.
And it's a joy.
It's on Facebook.
It's a joy.
Yeah, it is.
And so in order for us to move out of this closed mentality of welfare and to move, once again, because when we hear the word wellness, you may think of, okay, money or houses. No, but it's a mentality that I'm truly free within my mind.
Yes.
Because my mind can go as far as wherever.
Yes, you
As
can
Pluto.
imagine.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
people can't imagine things when they don't have the tools to build that imagination. When I
Yes.
grew up, we had, you know, paper dolls and we
Right.
had put the
I
little
remember
paper
that.
that never would stay on.
No, never.
Y'all telling y'all age.
Oh, you don't know nothing like that. You don't know nothing about that.
And y'all look good for your
Yeah,
age.
thank you.
Yeah.
How age? What is that age?
But we could imagine what they were
what it looked
saying
like,
and
yeah.
what they
Yeah.
were doing and dances and this, that, and that. Kids they don't have that imagination. That
Imagination.
It's
Brain
being
dead,
squashed.
brain
Why?
dead.
Because they're being fed. They're not really utilizing the creative part of their mind. They're just being fed.
That's the
images,
difference.
You know, and that's going to stifle their imagination. But as I said again, it's our job as parents. It's our job to take our kids to these places to help them to. I know there's some families right now, right here in Washington D.C., that still limit TV viewing to a certain period and still don't care to have cable. You know, the extensive channels.
Right.
They still have certain monitoring systems on their TV so that their children will stay, you know, in a certain environment. However, what happens at school, but then when they come home, their structure is reinforced at home. It's a job, but then at the end of the day, you reap what you sow.
Reinforcement is critical.
Oh, yes.
Because we can't, I don't know when it got turned around and said the school has to do this in school. Most teachers are not equipped to handle all the stuff that they need to handle at school.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't teach them to be equipped to do that. Parents are the primary educators of their children.
That's right.
Somewhere along the line, people forgot that. And they think, well,
Drop the
I
kids
send them
off.
to school, you know, you ought to do. No. You ought to do.
Well,
You got some on this.
Dr. Gibbs talked about we as here around the table as a community. I don't have children, and I had made it a decision to mentor. So even though listeners or viewers may be watching and say, I don't have children, you still are accountable, you know, in the community to mentor. Because the mentoring can also make a difference. You know, doing things that will make a difference in your community.
In whatever way it might be.
Right.
You know, now you're on the praise and worship team, so
She meant us.
you need to understand that even outside the formal mentoring that you do, young folks are watching you.
That's right.
You know, and
Never
Told
thought
you
about
that
that.
time.
Yeah.
I said, they're watching you.
Yeah,
They're
and they
watching
are.
you.
They are. So even carrying yourself in the right way, having a sense of the right conduct, is an example that you give when you get up.